You are listening to the Knightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to Knightline at Night on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Night Nation's only call-in show goes live now.
All right, welcome to Knightline at Night. My name is Andrew Phegley. Hello, Night Nation. Hello, Orlando, or wherever you are listening. We are live from the Dever Team Studios, brought to you by Chad Barr Law, raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Give Chad Barr a call, 407-599-9036 for a free consultation, or visit chadbarlaw.com. You can also call Travis Dever for all your new Smyrna Beach real estate needs, 386-690-1636. We're taking your calls, 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326, or you can use the open mic feature on the WDBO app. I am AP_Knightline on Twitter, or at UCF_Knightline on Twitter. I'm joined by Big Ben Stout, Big Social 32 on Twitter. Roger Phipps at Bengal on Twitter from the Santa Rosa Beach studios, and you can find all the rest of our stuff, our podcasts and everything else at nightlinesports.com. Also, Sam is in the studio. First of all, I want to say hi to Ben and Roger. Ben, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Andrew. It's a little bit of an interesting week for UCF athletics, but I'm happy to be on the show tonight, and we can talk about all of it.
Yeah, well, we're going to. Roger, how about yourself? How you doing?
Pretty well. Just like you said, an interesting week, to say the least. I'm glad we had a little bit of time to kind of digest everything that we've seen over the past week in UCF sports, but I'm glad to be here with both of you.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk basketball, bowl games, and UCF players declaring for the draft. Trey Nixon and Greg McCrae both announced they're leaving or entering the NFL draft today. We knew some other people were Richie Grant, Marlon Williams, but Trey Nixon and Greg McCrae as well deciding to join. So those will be two guys, I think, that I want to start talking about this right away.
Sure.
I'm just going to go straight into it. Those two guys, in my opinion, if they would have stuck around for this year, because everybody gets this free year because of COVID and the weirdness of 2020, I think that both of those guys could have made big strides and could have really, really improved their draft stock if they would have stayed around. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, especially in my opinion, it's unfortunate that Greg McCrae lost, a lot of the year last year. He lost a lot of time, sometime this year with some nagging injuries. He was mostly healthy this year, but certainly Trey Nixon, going down in the first game, he looked like he was poised to have a monster season and just lost a full year of tape. I mean, he was able to come back for the last couple of games of the year, including the bowl game, but just didn't quite have the opportunity to put a lot on tape in his, which was his senior year this year. And that's probably the most unfortunate part, is that he just, while he had a pretty good year last year, obviously he was behind Gabriel Davis, and then he got the injury this year that had forced him to sit out, which of course led to the rise of Marlon Williams and the great year that he had.
He didn't even play half of the season this year. I mean,
over half, right?
Half.
Like I think it was only
the first game, the last game, and the bowl game.
Right.
So I mean,
just didn't get a lot of opportunities to put a whole lot on tape, and that's probably the most unfortunate thing about it. At the end of the day, though, this has been a tough season for him. It's been a tough season for all the athletes, and it kind of makes you wonder if he just wanted to go ahead and move on from college, which we've all been there, right? Athletes or not, we're all ready to move on with our lives, and maybe that was his motivation at the end of the day. He felt like he was ready, and just wanted to go ahead and move on.
Yeah. Well, Greg McCray really has been my favorite running back that UCF has had for a number of years. And I, of course, for selfish reasons, wish that he would stick around. You know, over the years, I've said, give the guy the ball 30 times. Like, you know, feed the guy the ball. The more he carries the ball, the better he does, and all this stuff. And we saw it a little bit in 2018. He got the ball a lot more, but he still had Otis Anderson and Adrian Killens there with him. Roger, what do you have to say about Greg McCray?
What do I have to say? That's a huge loss for UCF is what I have to say. He's a running back that averaged 6.5 yards per carry for his career. He ranks number 4 on the rushing list and touchdown lists. And as you said, he missed a big portion of one of his seasons, and he was averaging less carries than a full load. So Greg McCray, he's a stand-up person. He's also a stand-up running back. He was someone that was a joy to watch with the football. For him, I really wish he would have stayed an extra year, because I do think he could have increased his draft stock, taking on a bigger part of the load. I also feel like, he would have benefited just from, as you said, more tape, because he has reduced carries compared to most running backs. So I think he was just hitting his stride again, and I think he would have had a much better opportunity. And the same thing, I think, even more so for Trey Nixon. So Trey's just he's one of those guys that got hit with that shoulder injury early, and unfortunately, I think he's missing out for some valuable tape and time to increase his draft stock.
Absolutely. All right, Sam, take a left at Albuquerque as well. You're a UCF guy. How do you feel about these two guys going to the NFL draft?
Yeah, I think the Trey Nixon thing isn't going to be as big of a loss for this UCF team if you're looking at it from that perspective, because I think Jalen Robinson really stepped in there. I think Jacob Harris, if he comes back, he's a senior this year, but we get that free year. I think the receiving core isn't going to take a huge loss with Trey Nixon moving on, even though I think he's a talented receiver. If he wants to go to the draft and you think that's best for his career, good for him. I personally think he isn't ready, and especially seeing guys like Gabe Davis and Trey Smith before that and thriving in these receiver cores, I sort of have an idea of what they need to look like to do well on the next level, and I don't think Trey's right there yet. So I would have recommended him, if you were listening to me, to come back for another year and hopefully up his game. On the other hand, Greg McCray, I love this dude. Like you said, Andrew, giving him 30 carries a game should be the call here, but we have so much talent in the backfield, it's going to be tough to do that. But I thought he was our best running back for the past 2 seasons. So it's going to be tough seeing this guy leave, even though he was injured this year. He still, to me, was the workhorse back that we needed, that we didn't have all year, and probably one of the reasons why we went 6-4 this year.
Yeah, and he could have been a featured back this year with Otis Anderson moving along. Probably we haven't really heard what's going on with that. He hasn't made his formal statement yet, but he is a senior, so that leaves younger guys. So I just wish he would have stayed around, especially seeing what happened to Adrian Killens when he went into the NFL draft and is on a practice squad now, I believe. Maybe has played in a couple NFL games for the Philadelphia Eagles. I wish that really, I don't know. I kind of wish both of them. Trey Nixon, I've always kind of been indifferent with him. I've never been a huge fan of Trey Nixon. Nice guy, all that stuff. But I've called him the laziest player in the game multiple times. Just because he doesn't put out 100% of the effort all the time, it doesn't look like. When other guys are diving for the ball or jumping for the ball, it'll go right past Trey Nixon. Most of the time. Sometimes not. Yes, he has made some great plays on balls, but there have been multiple times that he hasn't haven't used the most effort, in my opinion.
To me, that's kind of is another what could have been moment with Trey Nixon, because I agree with you. Leading into this season, we hadn't quite seen that fire out of him. And I know it's a very, very small sample size, but in the first half of that Georgia Tech game, it just looked like he was a different type of player. He was much more physical. He was, going after the balls in the ways that we hadn't seen him do in the past. And then, of course, that injury happened, right? Like, he had an incredible first half there before he got injured, but it was more about the way he was attacking the field and attacking the balls that Dylan Gabriel was throwing to him. It seemed like he was poised to have a different type of season than we've seen from him in the past. So
he would have been the number one guy, So
absolutely,
that would have. It wasn't going to be Marlon Williams. It was going to be Trey Nixon. That whole situation was kind of disappointing. All right.
Well, one thing real quickly I wanted to say about Greg McCrae, just me personally, I agree with everything that you all had said. And thing about Greg McCrae is he's right up there for me personally with Alex Haynes. Some of the old school guys will remember Alex Haynes as a running back in the early 2000s. Just a stand-up guy, a patient runner. Could be powerful when he wanted to, but had the breakout speed as well. Greg McCrae is one of my favorite running backs to ever wear the black and gold, and so it's a shame to see him go, but I wish him all the best. That's for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you mentioned disappointment that we may have had with Trey Nixon and his season because of the injury, and he was probably disappointed. Well, it's a great segue because it brings us right to UCF's bowl game with BYU that was last Tuesday. The reason why we played a replay of our show the week before, we were watching that game. I would have rather done the radio show, I think, than watch that game. That game was probably one of the most horrible beatings that UCF has taken in the last, probably since 2016. It was horrible. 49-23. Yes, it doesn't sound that bad, but that score does not tell the story at all. It was way worse than that score tells. 0 points in the first quarter, 10 points in the second quarter, 7 points in the third quarter, and 6 points in the fourth quarter for UCF. While BYU just laid it on. Zach Wilson, his name?
Yes.
The quarterback for BYU destroyed defense already. Our defense was destroyed by either opt-outs or people that got kicked off the team, players going to the NFL draft. So we had a bunch of freshmen in there on defense, and it was just...
And a walk-on safety.
Yeah. It was horrible. It was one of the biggest beatdowns that I've seen UCF have in a long time. Here's real quick what Josh Heupel had to say about it.
There's a lot of things that the guys did well throughout the course of this season. Obviously, the expectation and standard here is to go out and win every time we line it up on Saturday. This one should stay with us all off season up until kickoff at the beginning of next season. We got to be better. There's a way that you prepare and the purpose and the way that you work all off season to give yourself a chance to have the type of season that we want to. But you got to make it happen, and it happens because of the way you work. I said that to the team here. This one needs to stay with us. First time since I've been here that we got beat like this.
All right. Well, they're going to hold on to it, and they need to hold on to it. They need to remember when they go back in the fall, I guess, or the spring to start practicing. They need to remember what happened in this bowl game. Just like Josh Heupel said right there. We're going to talk a lot more about this. We're getting ready to take a break here, so I don't want to get way into it, but I wanted to kind of give that little hint of what we're going to talk about and why this was such a bad deal. I got another clip from him later on as well. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back on Knightline at Night.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need, and Levis family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
And now, back to Nightline at Night on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Call now at 844-580-9326.
All right, back on Nightline at Night. I'm Andrew Phegley, brought to you by Chad Bar Law. We're taking your calls, 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-WDBO, 9326. Or you can use the open mic feature on the WDBO app. I got Big Ben Stout with me and Roger Phipps, and also in the studio there, Sam Take a Left at Albuquerque, which you can also hear on the Nightline Sports Network, by the way. Sam's podcast, Take a Left at Albuquerque. Does a great job as well on there. You can hear that on nightlinesports.com. Okay. Back to talking about, if you just tuning in, we were talking about the debacle that was the UCF Boca Raton Bowl against BYU. It was absolutely horrid. 49-23 BYU. Zach Wilson going for BYU 26-34 for 425 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he wound up with 441 yards because of how they do stats. And rushing, they rushed 38 times for 214 yards and 4 touchdowns. So Dylan Gabriel, on the other hand, 21-45 for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns, and we ran for 194 yards. Greg McCrae being on top of that, 18 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. So,
and Dylan just seemed like he was running for his life all night. I mean, just they were kind of all over him. It was amazing that he completed some of the passes that he did, but it was a tough night for Dylan. I don't think he certainly didn't play his best game, but I think under the circumstances, he hardly had any time to to even think about throwing the ball in an accurate way. It was just a tough night overall, but the defense was what was really falling apart with some of the walk-ons that we had.
Yeah, our offense and our defense both got manhandled, period.
Yes.
There's no other way to look at it. We looked like a high school team playing BYU. And BYU is not one of the biggest Power 5 football teams out there. They're an independent. They're, really a glorified Mountain West team, but, they're a solid football team. And they had one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football this year, although we do ourselves as well. But it seems like the offensive line for them and the defensive line for them are on a different level than we were, unfortunately. And
that was one of the matchups we talked about, right? In the trenches and the lines, they were much bigger than us, and would we be able to prevail? And unfortunately,
this was one of the things that I was worried about when this was announced. We're like, oh yeah, all right, we get number 16 BYU, but the problem is, and I said, I just hope that we can make a game of it and not get embarrassed. What did we do? We got embarrassed.
For sure.
And I think a lot of it did have to do with that defense. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this because we're up on another break here in just like a minute. So we're definitely going to talk more about it. We'll go a little bit more in depth and we'll talk about that defense a little bit because that was the thing that really got us. So a lot of evaluation to do in the off season for UCF. All right, taking another break here, and we'll be right back on Knightline at Night.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each and every week on the Knightline Sports Network for the AAC Report. We bring you in-depth coverage of each school in football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, golf, tennis, and more, as well as bring you insider interviews and focus in on the biggest games and news of the week. That's all right here each week on the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Knightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this.
We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys?
My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong. Spoiler alert! Until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Yeah. Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Knightline Sports Network.
And now, back to Knightline at Night on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Call now at 844-580-9326.
All right, back on Knightline at Night. I'm Andrew Phegley. We're live from the Dever Team Studios, brought to you by Chad Bar Law, raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Give Chad a call, 407-599-9036 for a free consultation, or visit chadbarlaw.com. You can also call Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach real estate needs, 386-690-1636. You can also call us if you want to, 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326. Does anybody use the letters on their phone anymore? I always wonder that. I don't think anybody does. So that's why I say 9326, 844-580-9326. Okay. Or you can use the open mic feature on the WDBO app. Really cool. You just push a button, say what you want to say, and it sends it, and then Sam can play it for us, and you don't have to talk to us or anything. I am AP_Knightline on Twitter, or at UCF_Knightline on Twitter. Got Big Ben Stout with me at Big Social 32 on Twitter. Roger Phipps at Night Bengal, and he is broadcasting from the Santa Rosa Beach studios in beautiful Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. Got Sam back in the studio. Sam, Take a Left at Albuquerque, which you can also hear on the Knightline Sports Network, nightlinesports.com. Alrighty, so we've been talking about this bowl game, this debacle of a bowl game that it was, 49-23 BYU over UCF. I played a clip earlier of Josh Heupel saying that this needs to stick with the UCF team. He's never been beaten that badly since he's been at UCF, and he wants this to stick with the team so they can use it as ammunition for next season. He also said this, though, and this is a little interesting. Listen to this clip.
We're going to evaluate everything. We do every year. You're trying to incrementally get better in every sense of the way, and that comes in all fashions.
Well, one thing that I think needs to be really, really evaluated, and I think that a lot of other people are on this same page with me, is the position of defensive coordinator. We have Randy Shannon. Yes, the Randy Shannon is the defensive coordinator at UCF. Former Florida coach, former Miami coach, head coach, interim head coach, I believe, at Florida. Defensive coordinator there, the Randy Shannon, the recruiter from South Florida. Yes, he's done pretty well on recruiting for UCF. But the defense has always kind of been, we say it's a bend, don't break kind of defense. We've called him second half Randy for the last couple of years because, he'll totally like whiff on the first half of a game and then all of a sudden turn it on in the second half and look like a superstar as far as a coach goes. But his contract comes up, and the real big problem with this bowl game, 49-23 BYU, I'm going to keep saying it, was the defense. It was horrid. The worst defense that we've played since I don't know when, 2016 at least. So, it was even worse than Schneider's defense that we all remember when Scott Frost was here and that defensive coordinator. It was way worse than that. Roger. So, Randy Shannon's contract is supposedly up tomorrow. Do we extend him or do we go shopping?
We go shopping. 100% go shopping. And I'm not even going to, when I think about this BYU game, this was the icing on the cake, right? This was an opportunity for Randy Shannon to show, hey, my knowledge and experience as a coordinator will overcome all the challenges of opt-outs and transfer portal folks and folks that were missing off the line due to COVID and all of these things, right? And let's be fair. I will be fair about this. The roster that was fielded for BYU was depleted. And by depleted, we're talking about having walk-ons come on and play safety, which is one of the most important positions in our defense. So, you do have to look at that. The BYU did field a great offense. They took advantage of the middle of the field the entire time. And we did have some COVID challenges leading up to the game so that a large number of those folks that ended up playing in the bowl game didn't have practice or the advantage of having practice for a week before the bowl game. So, yes, there were a lot of challenges to overcome. But when you look at this as a whole, has Randy Shannon moved on the needle up or moved it down? Has the defense been trending down? I think overall, Randy Shannon's defense, unfortunately, has not panned out the way that we wanted, whether it be for personnel or otherwise. So at this point, especially when you consider the money that he'd be potentially making, I think you move on. And I think, I would want to make sure if I was Danny White, and to be fair to Heupel, that Heupel has an opportunity to have a say in whomever that is that's going to be working with him, especially given the type of offense that we run and the number of plays and defensive snaps that a defense is going to play for us. So,
yeah, I'm going to fill some people in here a little bit. Some people may not know that Randy Shannon, number one, is the highest paid coordinator or assistant coach in the Power Six, we'll call it, the group of five. The number one highest paid assistant makes over $1 million from UCF this season, and I believe last season as well. Also, he was hired before Josh Heupel was by UCF. Before the head coach was hired, they hired the defensive coordinator. So this was not Josh Heupel's decision to be the head coach, and I believe that this happened even while they were still interviewing people, and other coaches did not decide to come to UCF because they had already hired Randy Shannon and they wanted their defensive coordinator. So, yes, he did some pretty good stuff recruiting, but then again, there's been some issues with some of those people that he recruited as well. So, Ben, I know you want to jump in on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Roger, and I agree with both of you in the sense that I think the sun is set on Randy Shannon's tenure here at UCF. And we've talked about this numerous times on the podcast and the radio show where it was an odd way of hiring a coordinator in the sense that Danny White hired Randy Shannon before he hired our head coach and Josh Heupel. And so I really think that as much criticism, a lot of it deserves, some of it not, that we give Josh Heupel, I am just I'm holding off the ultimate kind of nail in the coffin, definitive criticism of Josh Heupel until I can see one season with him being the head coach of the entire team, because I don't feel like the last few seasons he's been here and his first few seasons as a head coach, I just don't feel like he has been able to fully own the entire team. And I don't think until he is able to have a hand in hiring a defensive coordinator that will kind of unlock that full view of how he is and how he is managing as a head coach. And so that is what I'm most curious about leading into next year. I'd like to have him have a major voice in the room, along with, of course, Danny White being the major hiring person there. I'd like to have Heupel be a part of that search. And I think as good as Randy Shannon has been in the past, and we've had some bright spots here, I think his time with UCF has just come to a close.
Well, as the head coach, that is Josh Heupel's responsibility to hire that defensive coordinator. I fully agree. That is not the job of the AD, Danny White, Dr. Danny White, to make that decision. That's Josh Heupel's decision, and it should have been from the beginning, and I think that's where we went horribly wrong. I think it set Josh Heupel up to not have maybe even the confidence. If you're defensive coordinator, if you're not the guy to hire your own defensive coordinator, I wouldn't have done it personally. I think there's a lot of other coaches that were in the mix that said, I'm not doing it. Either I hire my own guys or you don't hire me. I'm positive of that, actually. So, they need to get this situation fixed for sure.
It does make you wonder if that's, just that fact is such a unique situation in college football where the head coach is hired after the defensive coordinator, that it just makes you wonder if being a young head coach, first-time head coach in Josh Heupel, like that over the years as he questioned his decision or felt like he doesn't have full authority over the football team because of Randy Shannon's presence. And I just really would like to see a full season with that being the case of him being kind of the head coach of the entire football team.
Okay, so very quickly, both of you, I want to know who you would hire that's available right now to be the defensive coordinator.
Is there anybody available? Honestly, I say that half in jest, but realistically, one of the challenges with COVID is that there isn't a lot of turnover at defensive coordinator right now. I'm not aware of anybody that I would hire at this point that I would go out and find.
So then does Randy Shannon stick around for another year because of that? Or does Josh Heupel have somebody that he played with or coached with in the back of his mind that he would hire tomorrow?
I think that's a question for Josh Heupel and Danny White to answer. Honestly, I'd imagine that Josh Heupel, if Randy Shannon is sunsetting, I don't think this is a surprise for anyone. And I think Josh would have had at least a list of people that he would reach out to. So, or in the back of his mind, they said, okay, I could work with this person and bring them on and feel comfortable working with them. I just don't know who that would be right now because nobody's being fired. There's not the normal coaching carousel that you would normally see.
Well, there's a couple staffs that are going to be changing, but we'll see.
Well, you also got to think though, like, do we need a defensive coordinator right now as our defensive coordinator, or do we find somebody who's on a staff somewhere that we have, like you said, has a relationship with Heupel and he understands his philosophies? Do you guys think anybody on our current defensive staff, like a Willie Martinez or anybody, would be promoted at this point?
You never know. Willie Martinez, that's a good thing that you're saying that there. That's a possibility for sure. He's already assistant head coach, so he's the one guy that has that title, I believe, as assistant head coach. So
and he has some UCF history. And he has some UCF history as well. So I think a lot of that would be predicated on Josh Heupel's confidence in his ability to coach and their relationship. And I don't know how much of an opportunity they've had to bond because from what my understanding is, there was a clear divide between the two coaching staffs for defense and offense. One handled one and the other handled the other. There wasn't a lot of bridging those gaps. So I don't know what kind of relationships there are between Heupel and Martinez.
Well, Heupel hired Martinez, so I mean, and I don't know about that. I haven't heard too much about a huge divide like that. That's kind of new to me. I mean, I could see that maybe him and Randy Shannon didn't get along, and we questioned that for years as far as that goes. So there could have been a divide between those two, but I don't know if it involves all the rest of the coaches. I've never heard that per se, that anybody said that to me or anything like that. So I don't know about that. But we're going to take a break here very shortly, and then we're going to come back and talk about basketball because that is also going on at UCF, and I think we have a pretty good basketball team, and they play tomorrow night. So we're going to take this break, and then we're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about UCF basketball next on Knightline at Night. Hey, Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
And now, back to Knightline at Night on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Call now at 844-580-9326.
All right, back on Knightline at Night. I'm Andrew Phegley, brought to you by Chad Barlaw. We got Big Ben Stout and Roger Phipps on the line, as well as Sam Albuquerque in the studio. We got to talk real quick here in the short amount of time that we have left about basketball. Houston, UCF, it was Saturday, I believe, last Saturday. Yep. Houston 63, UCF 54. Not a bad showing, really. Houston was ranked, I believe, number 6 at the time. So 9 points, not a bad loss to number 6, Ben.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and Houston, actually, the new AP poll came out yesterday. They're ranked number 5 in the country now. I mean, listen, Houston is a Final Four caliber team. They're an excellent team. They're well coached. They're very disciplined. And we came out in the first half. At one point, we were leading 14-4. We played excellent defense. I would say basically the entire game, with maybe the exception of that. And we were tied at halftime, 25-25. So the first half was really going well, and it was kind of a defensive battle. The issue is first 10 minutes of the second half, they came out, they made really good halftime adjustments, as good teams do. They played a high pick and roll on offense that kind of confused our defense just a little bit momentarily. It was enough to kind of stretch the lead. We tried to make a few runs in the second half, but ultimately we had too many. We had too many turnovers. I would say it was probably our biggest problem offensively. We actually out-rebounded them by 10 rebounds, which is a huge accomplishment. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. It was a tough effort offensively against a really good defensive team, but I thought we stayed in it. We tried to kind of push forward and push through some mistakes. But at the end of the day, you can't make some of the mistakes that were made against a team the caliber of Houston. But ultimately, through the 5 games that we played so far this year, I'm still excited and encouraged about what this team can and will be. And we've got a couple of good tests in conference coming up this week with Tulane and USF, and we'll see how it rolls.
All right, real quick here, I want to play something from Johnny Dawkins after the Houston game, and then we'll come back and talk just a teeny tiny bit about those two games coming up this week.
No, you give them a lot of credit. I mean, they made some big plays down the last 2 minutes. Defensively, they were strong all night, but you expect that from Kelvin Sampson, coach team. They just wear you down over time. Turnovers is one of the things that I think definitely played a part in it. We got to value the ball, more than we did. But you give them credit. They made a lot of plays, to make that happen, and I didn't think we shot as well from behind the arc as we had been shooting it, going 2 for 13. That really hadn't been our MO in the last several games for us. So those are the things that kind of stand out to me. And I thought we may have defensively given them too many made threes. They had 7 made threes in the game. And I think that's something that, that we'd have to do a better job at. I thought it was a great game. I thought it was more of a fist fight type of a game, but that's how it's going to be when you play Houston. I mean, they don't give an inch, and you have to go out there with that same type of mindset. It's going to be an aggressive game. It's going to be a physical game, and you have to embrace that. And I thought our guys did for the most part. I just, like I said, they just had a little more, at the end. It's a 2-possession game down the stretch, and I thought they just finished the game out better than we were able to, and that was the difference in the ball game.
All right, an interesting team that UCF has going. They're 3-2 at this point with a win over number 15 Florida State at Florida State, playing Tulane on Wednesday, and the dreaded Cows from north-southwest Florida on Saturday. Real quick, Ben, very quickly, what do you think coming up with those two games? What are those going to be exciting games to watch?
Yeah, I think we've got enough to handle the Tulane game coming up tomorrow night. Obviously, we're going to have to play our game well, but to beat them. But really, I'm looking forward to that matchup with the Cows. They're a tough team this year. It should be a great War on I-4 basketball matchup with Alexis Yetna on the inside, and so they've got some talent over there. We should look for a great game on Saturday.
All righty. Been a fast show. We had all kinds of stuff to talk about, but we did it. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week, Knightline at Night.